Like him, I killed in the name of good. But the violence of my life pulled my soul towards the darkness. But I fought and freed my soul. Now I watch for others like me. Men are the ones who create evil on Earth. It is the choices they make that enslave their souls to hell. This is the test.
But we are an extension of the earth. We are energy and we are spirit. Before we will be strong enough to fight and stand up to the enemy, we are going to have to evaluate how we use our own energy. Are we misusing our own energy? Are we misusing ourselves? Because we got to deal with that before we can deal with being misused by someone else. Alternative energy. We are alternative energy. We are it. We have power. We must gear ourselves for a long struggle. We must never give up hope. We must never turn our back on it and say we're not going to make it. Because those who turn their back and say we're not going to make it, then they're not going to. That's it for them. But the spirit of the people, the spirit of the people, the spirit of the earth. We live in a natural world. We go through lives. All of our ancestors who were here before us, all of our relations who were here with us and went into the spirit world. See, they didn't go to heaven or hell. They're here. They are spirit power. We connect with them. They will help us. They will help us to survive this thing, this madness that is coming, this machine madness that is being imposed upon all of us. What we must do is we must seriously think and consider our situation today as human beings. Because we're talking about sexism and ageism and racism and classism. We're talking about a nuclear attack against the earth. We're talking about a lot of things. They want to confuse us with nuclear bombs. They want to confuse us with the draft. They want to confuse us with the whole economics. But we must take a little bit of time every day anyway and put some of that confusion to the side and think about who we are in relationship to the earth. The earth has the ability to heal, and the earth has the ability to help us. The earth is power. We're looking to the wrong source for our power. And the more we look to the wrong source, the more powerless we become. And they will attack. You take that flower power movement that was in the middle 60s. These were young white people coming out of middle America. And these were the ones that were saying it doesn't matter what you look like or how you dress or how much money you make. And they became a threat to America. So America attacked them. America attacked them with LSD and speed and heroin and drugs. America took them and discredited them and said they're no longer flower power children who come from your middle class homes. They are drug addicts, and they had a generation gap. See, but everybody was so caught up in mind expansionism and idealism, they said, well, the LSD is a good thing for us, and we really want it because it helps us to grow and see. But I consider it to be an act of war. The CIA was experimenting with LSD specifically for that purpose, to use it in chemical warfare, and they saw a whole segment of the American public was turning into a consciousness that talked about true human life values, so they dropped their LSD bomb. You see, because mind expansion and consciousness alteration was taking place. That's what the civil rights movement was. That's what the flower power movement was. That's what the anti-war movement was. There was people whose minds and their consciousness was expanding and starting to become more realistic. So they turned around and they dropped a few things on us to divert our energy. So we have to be very careful. We must always think. We must always look to see, because there's an answer for everything that is going on if we're willing to take the time to look for it and to see it. We are power. We are energy. We are spirit. We are the people. We want to be free. We want our liberation. Then we must take the responsibility that goes with liberation and freedom, and that responsibility is to be able to take the time to analyze and to think and to feel things out to their logical conclusion. Stay with these things to the end, to the good conclusion. We cannot come and get involved in this for a year or 2 years. We must pick our way of life and we must live to it. And no matter how hard anybody here thinks that it is, you think about all of our relatives that are locked up in prison cells. Think about how hard it is for them. But they're strong enough to endure. Well, we're out here. we should be strong enough to endure also. Think about all the women and children and men, the people that have had to endure centuries and centuries of oppression, strong enough to endure. We must do that. We must find a way to communicate with each other. We must find a way to have a more open human compassion. We must go back to the ways of the earth. It's the only way we're going to protect the unborn. We must never quit. We must be resistance. We must build a resistance that passes on the information and the knowledge of our mistakes to the next generation. We must not become too movement-oriented where we get caught up in our own arrogance because we're chasing a cause. We must build our power. And we must understand that we build strong. We must build to survive, not to change the politics right now. We must build to survive, because pretty soon, a lot of these conversations will not allow them to take place anymore. Pretty soon, we're going to have to be looking at each other in a way where we're allies. There's going to come a time in our lifetime, and many of us will see it. There's going to come a time where we're going to have to run to each other for safety. That time is coming. And anyone who refuses to believe it, anyone who still believes the American lie that it can't happen here, then you have our sympathy. And we do not mean to offend you. Stay with us as long as you can, and when you see it start to happen, then you make your decision. Because Reagan's not your enemy. He's an actor. He's saying the words that somebody is putting into his hands to say. He's reading his script. And they got this thing well planned. And they intend that they're going to break the backbone of resistance in America. And they're going to do it under their so-called energy crisis. I don't know what the answers are or the solutions. But we know that, let's pray. Every day we could pray. We could pray to the earth, and we could pray to the ways that we believe. And pray for some kind of understanding. And take a little bit of time to get to know ourselves and be comfortable with ourselves. Take a little time, see, because the enemy has come into us. The enemy is inside of us. The enemy exploits our ego, exploits our needs and our wants. You know, there are things in this world that we need to have to survive. And there are things in this world that we want because we want them. We are going to have to relearn the difference. We're going to have to learn to take what we need, even if it means giving up some of the excess that we want. And we cannot give too much to a way of life. I thank you for your time.
Okay, welcome to Freedom's Rising today on the tylerbloyer.com live stream. We are here on May 27th, 2023, and the title of today's episode is Freedom's Rising, Unslaving the Mind. And we've done many episodes and a whole series and project on the topic of Freedom's Rising, and that's the idea here today is we're going to continue on with that topic and discussion, an ongoing project of Freedom's Rising. Now, that introduction, just to cover quickly, was Jonathan Trudeau, or John Trudeau, Trudell, I guess is how you would say it. And here on the screen, you can see in the Info Galactic, I'm just going to read a little bit about him. He is no longer with us as of December 8th, 2015, but he was a Native American author, poet, actor, musician, and political activist. He was a spokesperson for the United Indians of All Tribes takeover of Alcatraz beginning in 1969, broadcasting as Radio Free Alcatraz. During most of the 1970s, he served as a chairman for the American Indian Movement based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Obviously, we can go on, but just to give you a little idea of who that was speaking, basically an activist, a lot of powerful words and a lot of powerful clips that I've heard of him. I've not read too much of his work or followed his work, heavily. And so again, the constant disclaimer of, well, just because I felt like that was a good clip to open up this particular episode as it ties in with the content and the type of media that we're going to be producing here today, what he was saying there. It doesn't mean that, that everything he did or said is something I'm on board or backing or, and that goes for people that we'll be discussing in this episode today as well. And, continuing on forward, that disclaimer, I suppose, has to be had. But, and then you see people would say, well, if you don't fully agree with them, then why do you, put them in your work? And it's, we're trying to provide an eclectic array of thoughts and opinions. It's not all just about agreeing and being like-minded at that same point, but then also, you'd be pretty limited to not be able to share in the multimedia content that we produce here. If you had to only, the perfect individuals on the planet could be put into the episode, like that wouldn't really work out either. But again, John Trudell will also be featured in the Exiting Music today, which I'm not going to give away what that is quite yet. But he's sampled actually in the Exiting clips. So those that know, what songs that John Trudell might be put in as a sample, will be able to guess what the Exiting Music is today. But we'll get to that point here, hopefully, in not too long from now. I did notice that last week when I created a little bit of a shorter episode, that the post-production was a lot simpler because some of the ways that I process files to the sites that I put them on, it fit just perfectly under the limit of that site. So I didn't have to go through a long process of, using Handbrake to compress the archive or the MP4, to make it smaller to fit. So anyway, that's one benefit of keeping it under 2 hours. We'll see how we do today on that. I'm going to try to kind of speed through the announcements so we can get into the bulk of the work and that we'll be discussing today with Unslaving the Mind, a very important topic within Freedom's Rising. And it's not going to be the encompassing end-all, be-all of the information. This is not meant to be the all-encompassing presentation on the topic. This is today an exploration in that, with a slight hint of enslaving the mind with other things that have to do with Freedom's Rising as well. And taking this format on my traditional, just sort of free-flowing streams here that I create throughout the week, not super far out planned on where the trajectory is with my free-form content. But Freedom's Rising is absolutely something, like I said, that we've been discussing, that we're going to continue to discuss. And, I'm kind of smiling and laughing because the dual, or maybe even more than two meaning purpose of what I'm saying with Freedom's Rising is not just a project. This is something we're all working on collectively, at least those of us that are consciously creating freedom and, using this experience to actually bring about more freedom and prosperity for the future. And so that, it's not just a project of mine, Freedom's Rising, although, it is at freedomsrising.live. You can find the live stream there. Today we are multi-streaming. So if you're having a problem with, Odysee, I think someone was saying last week they were having some hiccups with Odysee, then we can hop over to, the live stream here and see that it is live streaming on Odysee. There's my mug right there. And we can go over to Freedom's Rising, which is going to be on freedomsrising.live is live streaming on Twitch. So that's a different platform, obviously, and we're multicasting there. multi-streaming. I know it's not like, oh, we're multi-streaming, it's so cool, but I'm not actually using a service for this. I'm doing some techniques here locally to get it out. And yeah, I think, I used to go live on like Facebook and YouTube, which is obviously no longer a thing for TylerBloyer.com anyhow. And we used to go on like everything I could go live on. Now, that may come back, and I'm going to start, using maybe a third-party software again, or create some setups here to do that locally. But for now, the Odysee flow works really well because I then post the content on my page, tylerbloyer.com, with the Odysee embed, Odysee download link. That gives me the ability to pretty much publish as soon as it's ready to go after the live stream. Then I can get it up to the alternative outlets, and within, I've really got it down to a couple hours of work after a show to have it 100% done, and then in the process for getting ready for next week. And the faster I can start getting things on the board for the next week's content, the more likely it is that I'm going to be able to, really push through and get it out there and done. Because, folks, if you've ever created content like this, or written a book, or worked on a creative endeavor, it's great to have a timeline, but then also you can get behind really quick and not have the thing ready by the time it's ready to go. And today was definitely like that. I felt like putting it off several times and saying, well, it's not quite ready yet, but I pushed through. I got the slides done essentially 5 minutes before the show started. So if there's some mistakes in the slides today, I apologize for that. But again, we're not trying to be perfect. Perfect is the enemy of the done, is what one of the phrases I was trying to think of a couple episodes ago, and I couldn't think of it. But sometimes trying to do things perfect, yeah, we should strive for excellence. We should strive for perfection. And in some sort of live conference or an official presentation I'm trying to give, obviously, I can spend the time to try and get as close to perfect as possible, right? And even then, if that's going to be too much of a hindrance to just getting it done, and that's, this Sunday or Saturday, Sunday show that I do, depends on the day, is not meant to be, like I said, I'm an expert on this thing and I'm going to bring it out and give you the absolute exact details on how it all goes and everything's going to be perfectly laid out. It's more off the cuff. The slides are there to help me think about what I wanted to say and make the presentation nicer for the people watching it, more aesthetically pleasing, and maybe, hopefully, easier to understand the information as well. And up my game with the ability to purvey the information and my ability to put the information out there. So, with all that said, we've been discussing fear control, climate control, the climate meaning psychological control, more of a mind control technique with the whole climate change agenda thing, and Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, and, saving the planet, really about controlling you. And the creature of control is the topic we've been in. But today, although it's related, we're going to be talking more about Freedom's Rising. But Freedom's Rising definitely relates to our creature of control, because if we are the creature of control, that's going to be one of the hindrances of Freedom's Rising. And we'll talk about today some of the roadblocks and hindrances of Freedom's Rising and the things that get in the way of that, but then also some of the requirements. So that's the topics that we'll be discussing today are going to be Freedom's Rising, obviously. What are the requirements necessary in order to bring about Freedom's Rising? So what are the things that we need to have in place that are required in order for Freedom's Rising to occur? And that would be things like understanding what freedom is not, and true care, responsibility, unslaving the mind, as the subtitle goes here, and much more. And again, we'll also be talking about the things that hold us back from reaching Freedom's Rising, or why people don't even, get into consciously creating freedom in their own life. So that will be discussed as well. And you can find out more at tylerbloyer.com. There's a series of Freedom's Rising episodes there. And on freedomsrising.live, you can get into more details on what Freedom's Rising is. Well, what is Tyler talking about here? He just makes up his own language or something. No, it's a project, like I said, that I've been working on now for a few years. Initially with the idea to create an alternative platform for my content to stream on, as well as, create methods for making your publications more long lasting, so to have ways of publishing that endured. And a lot of that is occurring on the back end. But for example, I lost my YouTube channel and I could go out and create another one, and but I'm kind of done completely with YouTube and really don't care to go back to that platform. Even if it is, oh, there's more reach there, and I'm not going to fight that battle. I'd rather go where there's less resistance and, move into the realms of less resistance in that area than standing and resisting against in that particular junkyard piece of shit platform called YouTube. And there's other ways of getting your content out there. We're representing that here. But in addition to that, we will be, again, doing more episodes like this as well, where we're, re-introing or covering more topics about Freedom's Rising under the title Freedom's Rising, and maybe sometimes that'll be the subtitle. But just as I do different topics on the creature of control or falling into movement traps or Freedom's Rising or just whatever I want to talk about, we sort of have these channels and categories that we update and keep adding the pieces, keep going back and refreshing, keep going over the information, looking and seeing what we missed, taking things from a different angle. Even some of the media that I share, because I always like to, mix it up and have not just me, not just the quotes, not just the slides, not just me riffing, but also pulling in other people's content as well. And even then, we might use something that we've used before and bring it back and dust it off and try it again and piece it back together in that way, and just sort of keep hopefully also improving the skill set of presenting the information, although there's not going to be anything totally new said here either, because a lot of the information we're talking about isn't something that I'm discovering or I'm coming up with. We're basically talking about natural law and how living under the laws of nature could help to improve our current human condition. And then, the labels that we're using to discuss that are some things that I've created myself, and topics like Freedom's Rising that, if we understand the content of today's presentation, understanding really that it's more of a presentation on natural law, but, by living in more harmony with nature and its law, that's how man becomes more free. These things are exactly equal to each other. The more in harmony with nature and its law that we become, the more free that we will be. So Freedom's Rising and bringing that about, obviously, there are some requirements. And again, we're going to get into that today. So I think we've discussed the things that I wanted to discuss before we get into the slide deck. So now let's go ahead and open that up, see if I can get the right, hey, no wrong buttons pushed yet so far today. But now that I said that, we'll definitely be seeing some of that. So again, the creature, first, the Freedom's Rising, Unslaving the Mind from TylerBloyer.com, the cover art here. We've sort of been using the same style of sort of popping out the imagery with some basic artworks and very basic titles. Again, producing something like the episode that we're producing today on a weekly basis or something like that does require quite a bit of front loading. And so, I try to make it look poppy and nice and good on the artwork, but at the same time, can't be endlessly spending my time on every minute detail. But Freedom's Rising, Unslaving the Mind, welcome to today's episode. And again, we appreciate you guys for being here. This is somewhat of a continuation of the Creature of Control series, and the creature is obviously what is also included in holding back Freedom's Rising, so it ties right into that series as well. Again, Freedom's Rising, wake up, freedom's on the rise. I did hit that on my soundboard earlier, but I wasn't monitoring. So did that come through? No, I'm just curious. Let's try it again.
Wake up, freedom's on the rise.
And of course, that's my beautiful wife, Cassandra, there. Absolutely amazing person who was willing to record that little intro clip for me, and I used it in every single episode of the Freedoms Rising series. But today we are continuing along with that information. And again, you can find my work as well on the One Great Work Network, as well as many other content creators who are putting out the great work of teaching and educating people about the science of natural law, as well as, uncovering the lies, exposing how mind control works, exposing that government really is slavery, that external forms of government advocated for by an individual is not a right, and it is not something that you're able to do in nature, as far as, being in alignment with respecting other people's bodily autonomy and rights themselves. By claiming that ownership over someone else, you are basically claiming that they are your slave. And that's basically what an external form of government is in man. And not just, again, seeing the fact that the law is the highest form of authority. And we're talking about not man's law here, but nature and its law. So you can find out more about those types of topics, as well as many other things. And even like seeing on the live replay there, there's a live feed on the One Great Work Network as well. And there's always interesting content creators there being played in the loop that you can go find their work as well. And so head on over to the onegreatworknetwork.com to find out more about that. All right, so for Alt Eats, the other project of our alt life here on freedomsrising.live is sort of the encompassing umbrella of these projects. And Cassandra and I also have an alternative way of living when it comes to homeschooling, and the way that we eat is actually not very much like a lot of people's diets. And Cassandra herself has a very long and great backstory on why she has to eat the way that she does. But through that journey, she has created lots of interesting recipes for people's diet to be able to eat the foods that they might have been used to eating before, but not with grains or other things that might cause problems. Now, gluten or grains isn't a problem for everybody, but for some people, it actually is a real problem that can cause you to be sick and cause you to have major problems, actually put you in the hospital in certain cases. And so being able to make these alternative tortillas is really a great tool to have, because you can still use breads and make things like tacos or quesadilla or whatever you're making, and very simple to do. So she'll be teaching that June 10th at the same place at Bread and Basics here locally, and we produce that live and do a live stream of that content as well. Some of the stuff we're still shaking out some of the problems with that, but that's also something that we work on here, in my production enterprise that I like to call Within the Stones Media Network. We help people produce their content, and thank you for Cassandra for helping me to learn about going on site and doing an actual on-site mobile production in the field, is helping me take this thing that I do, live streaming and putting all the content together and going mobile on site. So that's really helping with me being able to learn those things. Okay, so next up is the seed. So if you're interested in that, you can go to alteats.life/events and find out more and enter your email there, especially if you're in the local area. Come, even just check it out just to meet Cassandra and I, and you'll learn some things, and then we can, meet who you are. And we love to meet people in the local area. Now, something that's not local in the area would be the Seed 5 Metamorphosis conference. This is a conference coming up in September on the 23rd and the 24th, a free online conference about the occult, esotericism, freedom, history, philosophy, symbolism, and natural law, with a bunch of amazing speakers. And I will be helping to produce this live event and doing the live streaming here from the TylerBloyer.com's studios. So thank you to Brandon Martin for reaching out to me and inviting me to participate in that way in this event. and it's going to be a great one. Obviously, there are many other excellent online and freedom events going on. So as those come up where I'm related to that, we will talk about that. I did at one point at freedomsrising.live, was discussing a lot of different events that were going on throughout the year, just to get people aware of the different freedom events. And that's also the idea of Freedoms Rising. At least the content that I produce for Freedoms Rising is to, discuss other people's work that are performing and doing and participating in Freedoms Rising. So I think that that's true of this event, and so look out for more details on that as we move closer to that event. I'll start putting links in the show where you can find the live stream and connect with us and get into that. So today, again, Freedoms Rising, Unslaving the Mind from TylerBloyer.com. We're going to get into the episode here now and start moving through the slides of the actual content itself. So let's just check. There's a little trick I'll do is just monitor the stream on my old phone here, and that way I don't have to keep looking at headphones or saying. I just want to make sure that the audio is good. Odysee is a little choppy for me too on this. The 4G in my house is not that great though, and I'm trying not to be on the Wi-Fi with my phone. But yeah, I can see there that it's working just fine. So that's kind of important before you get into the bulk of it here. But everything seems to be going well, so we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so Freedoms Rising. What are the requirements necessary in order to bring about Freedoms Rising? And you can see here that the sort of phoenix symbolism is also in alignment with Freedoms Rising because of what it takes for an individual to go through the various evolutions in their life and rebuilding and tearing away and rebuilding. It's like a death of an old and rebirth of a new event when, becoming enlightened or becoming activated in consciousness and actually performing the actions that require Freedoms Rising. So what are the requirements necessary in order to bring about Freedoms Rising? Now, we're trying to summarize this in, basically a few bullet points. There are obviously more things that are required. We're going to talk about some of the more important things that I saw to talk about as it is in the context of today's episode. But again, we're not trying to present this particular presentation today as the end-all be-all of everything that ever needs to be said and done about Freedoms Rising. This is just, again, another time spent on the topic, some more focus in a continuation of the discussion that we've been basically discussing now for 8 years on TylerBloyer.com, and that is, human freedom and human slavery, the main topics really, and, everything that's encompassed in those topics. There's a lot there. You could spend a lifetime just, researching this. So the understanding of what freedom is not is the first bullet point. So what is not just what is freedom? Okay, what do you think freedom is, or what's the definition of freedom? Not that only, but what is it not? That's one way to understand freedom, as we'll get into here. About understanding what freedom isn't, that's a good place to start. Another requirement is care, or what we're calling here is true care. And then unslaving the mind. That's the subtitle of today's episode. And we're also going to get into, where that term comes from that I'm aware of, which is Michael Tessarion, and he's also featured in this episode. At the end clip that we have today is from Michael Tessarion. And so I'm definitely attributing the word unslave or unslaved or unslaving to Michael, who I think at the age of manipulation, or at least at that point he had a shirt on that said unslaved, but I was trying to find the clip that he says something about an individual becoming totally unslaved, and there's an actual clip, and I couldn't find that clip. That was part of the delay of getting this episode going today. But yeah, so just want to make sure that that's clear, that I'm attributing that to him. And, again, is Michael Tessarion perfect? No, he's not perfect, but he's got really great work out there. And, I've seen, we'll get into this a little bit later. Let me continue on. So, responsibility. Freedom through responsibility is a thing I'm big on discussing, and not only that, but enacting in my own life, taking full responsibility for every situation that comes up in relation to you, and actually being able to respond to those things that come up. That's the form of responsibility. So our ability to respond to the coercion, to the duress, to the violence, right? And not just, oh, well, if it were all voluntary, it would... But actually, well, what are we going to do to address those things? How are we going to be ready to respond? How are we going to respond so that we don't end up in a confrontation on the side of the road with a road warrior, psychopath, police officer, right? And not saying like, on some personal attack against police officers, but, we're not going to go down that road right this minute either, because I'm still here on this like basically opening slide. But our responsibility and taking responsibility for everything in your life as accountability and responsibility is the path to freedom. We'll get into that more. And then wisdom, being something that comes through knowledge and action, is actually what you're displaying as something that is wisdom. So, to know and not to do is really not to know. And then having facts and knowledge and, just understanding isn't even necessarily enough, where wisdom is where right action meets that. And so the next two of activation and action, really sort of the same things, the same energy anyway, but really keeping them separate, that we're becoming activated through our wisdom in right action and then continuing to take action. Really, that's why I put it as a totally separate item, actually. All right, so freedom's rising's requirements. Again, understanding what freedom is not. So the process of negation or apophasis, right? Like knowledge of what God is not, or that's where I think apophasis comes from. But here, negation, so saying what freedom is not. So a pretty good example would be if you had someone in chains and whips, physical chattel slavery. That's a pretty clear example of what freedom is not, right? We all know that that person is a slave in physical bondage, and they haven't done anything to deserve this. They haven't taken any violence against anyone else to be, they're actually just been claimed that someone else owns this physical property, right? That's pretty clear act of what freedom isn't. So there's no real level of claim over someone else's property, over their body, over their autonomy that's then acceptable, beyond the claim of zero. Like 0% is the amount of ownership that someone else can claim over somebody else and it not still be, not freedom. So freedom is obviously not slavery, right? And it's not also being forced against your will to do things that you don't want to do. Now, again, I take issue with the people that are like, oh, well, if they would just stop taxing me, when you are voluntarily signing up for the contract that says that they're going to garnish your wage or whatever. That's not the same thing as what we're talking about there. When saying that that's not freedom, well, no, you're still free to choose how you want to respond to that. Now, coercion is something that you could say is also not freedom, and putting someone under duress to do something, right? But we still have our ability to respond to that coercion, and that's not something in nature that I see that is some axiomatic thing that shouldn't exist. It's more actually evident that the universe is hostile and that it's impersonal and it doesn't care about you in that way, right? It's not that there's not things acting in the universe like human beings that say, oh, well, since this is not the correct thing to do, then I'm not going to do it, right? That stuff exists. And our ability to respond to coercion is what really matters. But we can get into conditions and situations such as we see here in the imagery here, where we've forfeited and given up so much of our ability to respond, our responsibility, that we end up being controlled by others and dominated and coerced into doing things that maybe we'd rather not do by other people. And we're rapidly heading towards a time where, freedom, that as we understand it today, well, it's not even going to be a concept in the mind of people in the collective Borg. It will be completely phased out of not existence, but of as much as they can of our understanding of what freedom really is. That our ability to enact right action will become even more difficult than it is now. Right? We still have the ability to respond now. We still have the ability to act in a manner that is right action. And although it's scary, it's dangerous, it's I could lose my life. Yes, but at least we're not completely 100% dominated and controlled in all of our actions. And again, I think that's actually what we're rapidly headed towards. COVID was definitely something that showed us that people are willing to go along, as long as they're going to get their pellets at the end of their thing, they'll go along with tyranny. And they will go along with even something like this, but having their family members forced vaccinated, forced taken away from them if they don't. And, the imagery here could go along with anything. It's not just vaccines. You could be talking about, garnishing, taking your wages from you, taking your property from you, taking the family members, separating babies. That is not freedom, right? So understanding what freedom isn't is part of Freedom's Rising's requirement, so that we can understand what we're working against. Then we're trying to make sure that we can maintain bodily autonomy, maintain freedom, maintain the right to choose what we do with our body, with our property, and that someone else doesn't just force us to do things that we don't want to do. Force being, what they're using to do it. You still have the ability to resist and choose. Even if someone does have a gun pointed at your head, you still have the ability to choose how to respond to that. Okay, so now to the next slide here. Freedom's Rising's requirements, true care. You cannot make someone care. That has to happen within themselves. So, unfortunately, with this requirement, it's not something that you can instill in someone else. This is a process that individual, hence the imagery here of sort of the awakening individual to a higher self, aligning their third eye with cosmic consciousness, and whatever words you want to use to describe that this person has done the inner work to create a level of true care, meaning not just like fawning, I really care about these people in Mexico that are trying to cross the border or whatever, and then you're actually really not doing anything to help with that situation, like the virtue signaling, right? And I'm not trying to say anything about the people in Mexico or they shouldn't migrate. I'm not trying to say anything like that at all. What I'm trying to say is that the people will pretend to care about things. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a true self-love, really would have been another word to put here, or another phrase, or activating a higher level of consciousness in yourself that understands some of the things that are going wrong in the world and actually starts to. This is the beginning process of a spiritual awakening towards actually becoming in action to addressing the problem. But it has to start with care. And that process, again, you cannot make someone else care. This has to be something, unfortunately, again, and this is why we're in the position that we're in the world, that you cannot make someone else do. I didn't actually mean to change the slide there, but we'll go for it. So true care being a Freedom's Rising requirement, we also have responsibility. So again, freedom through taking responsibility, your ability to respond. So not just like, oh, well, it's my fault, I forgot to pick up the milk and eggs and I'm taking responsibility for that, right? But the responsibility to become someone who's in right action, teaching others around you about freedom and right action and our ability to resist tyranny and align our behavior with nature and its law. And not only that, but yes, also taking responsibility for why we're in the conditions that we're in as a person and reacting to that, right? Through things like, for example, homeschooling. So we homeschool our children and we take responsibility for our children's upbringing. We don't put them in the hands of other adults. And then when things go wrong or they're being taught something we don't like, go, why is this happening to us? Why are we getting this happening? Well, because you are not taking responsibility. You are, and then someone else says, oh, well, I can't raise my own children. I don't know how to teach them. I'm not a teacher. I don't know everything. Well, that's the limited belief system that people have. That's the limited way of thinking about how to utilize the tools that especially that we have in the modern day. And also that things are changing so rapidly that, uh, having a fear of thinking that you're not going to give your kids all the right things that a school would, as far as information goes, is a really, in my opinion, it's kind of a silly way to look at the future, because the future is not something you can predict and know what your children need to be learning exactly right now in school in the next 10 or 20 years. Things are changing so rapidly. And then also we do have the tools to give them the information, or even if you want to kind of create a school-like structure, there's several online courses that are very much like a school-like structure, or other people that you can meet with that really want to kind of do it that way, right? But our ability to be responsible for our children's safety and what they're seeing in the other adults that are around is our responsibility. We don't put that on other people to do that and then wonder why, when a school shooting happens, go and blame it on guns and blame it on things that are outside of our control, that we could actually be protecting our children from those things that are going on and actually taking responsibility for that situation. So that's one example of taking responsibility for freedom, right? Taking responsibility. And again, the word breakdown of your ability to respond, response ability. So it's, again, creating and preparing the conditions so that you are able to respond, so that situations come up. You're not saying, oh, well, I have to get the vaccine because my job, right? And not having ever thought about what would happen if you were put in a situation where you needed to choose freedom, bodily autonomy, what is the right thing to do, over the collective unconsciousness, the collective push towards something that ultimately always ends in tyranny and slavery, and not being able to resist that because you didn't take the responsibility to have a way to go over and do this other thing to make an income or during that time, or even just suffer without the income because it's the right thing to do, right? That's our ability to respond to that situation, and not say, well, I guess I just better get in the boxcar. I'm not sure what to do. I guess I better just get the CBDC. I guess I better get the injection because I don't know what else to do. How am I going to feed my family, right? Well, you take responsibility for producing food for your family, and that's not an overnight thing, but you work towards that, and that's how you should respond to that. That's how we should all be responding right now in the world. Even if we do believe the false climate narrative that the world is overheating and we're all going to die because the oceans are rising, well, then I better see that person that actually believes that, like, out in a field and a permaculture type plot homestead scenario every day, working their ass off to produce the food locally right there. And if they're not doing that, then again, that there's these fake That's not true care. That's not true wisdom. That's someone who's basically brainwashed by the media and pretending to care while doing and living a life that has nothing really to do with actually solving that problem that they themselves even claim is going on, right? Now, I think we'll move on to the next slide here. So, unslaving the mind would be the next requirement. So freedom starts in the mind. One can be free in the mind while still being physically enslaved. So this is an important concept to understand, is that we can still be free and understand freedom even in physical bondage, or even in a condition where we are under physical attack, or our bodies are not being respected and someone is assaulting our person, which is what's going on the planet. And the people of this planet are being attacked by an elite psychopath class that is attempting to dominate the planet, and through that they treat you like cattle, basically. But still, even in that condition, we can still be free people. And I'm not saying you can just go in your little happy place and just take whatever abuse you're getting, and that's how we should handle this. Like, that's not what I'm saying either. I'm not saying we should just, take the abuse. Here, I better take a sip here. But that freedom begins in the mind, and that's where it's maintained as well. And that's the starting place for manifesting freedom and for being free, is attitudinal. Otherwise, understanding that you're free no matter what inside of your own mind, and that there is no legitimate claim of the ownership over you, or saying, well, your parents signed these documents when you were a kid, so now you're part of this thing. And well, that's all just man's law bullshit, matrix, fabricated reality. It's not reality. It's not a true claim. So even if you accept the claim and you want to pretend that it's okay to advocate slavery and be a slave and put other people into slavery, which is essentially what, wanting to have people be in a democracy is. It's saying, as long as you're a citizenship of this, then these laws will be enforced on you, right? That's still not correct. Even if someone agrees to all that, it's still then claiming that you can enslave other people and making that okay. So even not understanding it doesn't make you not free. You are free, and you are beautiful, you are powerful, you are free, right? That's something Derek Bros from the Conscious Resistance says, but it's true. He's not saying you can be powerful, you can be beautiful. He's like, these things are within you, and unslaving the mind is essentially, taking off all those false chains, all the false persona, all the false belief systems, and realizing that, so you're already a free person, but you can be a slave, right? And so becoming unslaved would really, again, still, if you're in a state of coercion and duress and being attacked and assaulted, and you're choosing not necessarily to just directly fight back because that might be foolish, you could still be more of a prisoner then at that point, right? Hence, like the prisoner, Patrick McGowan, the whole allegory there is that he is not a slave, he's a prisoner, right? Then there's a difference between the two. Being a prisoner is something maybe but still you understand that you're a free being, and that there might be a false claim of ownership on you in that prison. I mean, unless you've done something wrong that obviously justifies you being locked up from society, because there are things people can do, obviously, that are to the point where we should do that to certain people, right? Or just exterminate them, honestly, like pedophiles and people that don't value life or respect other people's bodily autonomy, right? So, or destroy other people's property. That's, here, I gotta fix my hydraulic thing going down again. So that's an important distinction, is that the universe is mental, for example, the Hermetic principle, the first principle of Hermeticism, that All begins in the mind. Creation begins by having a thought first. I'd have to think about something before I actually do it. Yeah, there's stimulus response, there's conditioned responses. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in order for me to say I'd like to have some of this coffee, it starts as a mental thought first. It doesn't physically start happening before it happens in the mind. And the same is true for freedom. Freedom is something that is in the mind, as we have to unslave the mind. And that's part of the requirements for freedom's rising. And with that understanding, we can then have wisdom by converting our understanding into action. So wisdom being right action, wisdom being not just understanding things intellectually, but actually acting on them. And not just understanding a truth or understanding the laws of nature, but actually acting in accordance with those laws, acting in accordance with natural law, acting in accordance with true freedom, acting in accordance with right action, right? That is wisdom. That's how we bring what we know into action. And if we're not doing that, then do we really know? Is there really wisdom there? We might have some knowledge about a topic, but is that really knowing if you're not doing anything with it, if you're not actually putting what you understand into action in the world, in the 3D physical, not just fighting spiritually in your meditation state either, or like, we understand, but we're fine, and so we're not going to do anything about it. Like in your comfort and in your apathy, sort of, yeah, well, we'll get to that. Are we realizing the limited time that we have here and doing something with it? Could I just endlessly put off this episode and say this stuff, I don't know, I'm just all this self-doubt, and I don't really think I should be saying that, and if I do, makes me look silly, or what if I say something silly? Those are all things that would, potentially stop me from converting what I understand into right action, which is, what we're doing with Freedom's Rising. We are actually putting into action, not just me moving out into the country, or we're going to start with our chickens, and not just the little physical rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, the things that, I'm taking a skill set that I have and actually using it in a way in the world that makes sense for me on my path, but also affecting other people's consciousness, attempting to do the hardest work, the great work of actually trying to transfer that into those people that we talked about yet that haven't even reached the level of true care yet, that haven't activated that care. And although we cannot make them activate that, the actual attempt to do that, the actual attempt to make that bridge into someone else's consciousness and get them into right action, which starts with Freedom's Rising's requirements. I mean, you have to, you can't be completely mind controlled, brainwashed, and a slave, and mentally accepting your slavery and advocating slavery for other people, and then be doing things in right action and creating more freedom and consciousness. Not like you're going to be, that person will end up creating the exact opposite of a world of slavery, tyranny, death, destruction, chaos, and dominance by people who do understand these aspects of how, they may not be doing things to promote human freedom, but they do understand, again, the mental universe and how to actually achieve their goals of domination and tyranny and destruction of humanity, because, we're bad and we're overpopulating the planet and all that, because they understand, aspects of how the universe actually does work and will reward them for their action. Now, is it right action? That's why we're using these words to differentiate clearly. But Freedom's Rising's requirements require you to be in action. It's not a game of people sitting on the sideline. It's not a game where people can wait to see what happens. We have to act, and it's becoming even more pressing and even more urgent that we do. We're reaching a point, like I said, where the slide with the baby being taken away from their family to be force medicated, force vaccinated, and people that are pro-vaccine, fine, picture something else then. Picture them taking away your baby to cut off everyone's pinky toe, and that's the weird new thing that everyone's doing, or you chose not to circumcise and they're forced you to do that. Those are other examples, whatever example you want to fill in there. But we will reach a point where that becomes nearly impossible, and people won't understand why you wouldn't go along with things like that. They won't understand the importance of freedom. In the collective Borg, it will actually be frowned upon and attacked, right? So Freedom's Rising requirement requires those who are conscious and aware of the requirements of Freedom's Rising to act and be activated. So to get into activation and then continue the action and don't quit, and never give up the fight, never give up creating more freedom, which could mean, taking on forces that are something that's big and scary, and we could even lose our lives in this battle for freedom, or our freedom. We could lose our freedom in the battle for freedom, physical freedom, right? But again, they can't actually ever take your freedom from you. That's not something that someone else can actually legitimately take from you. They can take your life, but that's not the same thing. So are we consciously creating freedom? Consciously creating freedom would be the other way that I would look at that whole process we just went through. Are we consciously to a point where we're actually manifesting freedom in our own life intentionally, and helping to spread that to other people as well, through our work, through our deeds, through the action that we're taking? Are we consciously creating in that way? And I did this presentation now, almost 4 years ago, called Consciously Creating Freedom. As we went through and started to get into the falling in the movement traps, we did touch on the struggle for freedom and other topics like that, but also how to consciously create freedom. So very important presentation that you can go check out on my website, back from, again, September 2019. The collective unconscious is what we're dealing with, though. We're dealing with the unbegun. We're dealing with the unconscious masses. And again, oh, well, you're making fun of the mask wearers, and it's not. No, that's just happening to be recent times here that, this is the kind of imagery that goes on. But if you've ever seen They Live, right, he can see things that other people can't see. He actually has the ability to perceive things that the masses can't see, because they don't care, because they're asleep. They don't want to know. They don't want to learn. They don't want to look. They don't want to see, right? And so that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the collective unconscious, which isn't concerned with human freedom, which isn't concerned with Freedom's Rising. They're concerned with going along to get along. They're concerned with, making sure that they don't stick out from the crowd, with the crowd psychology, right? And the cult-like belief systems that people hold, and actually call out the individuals, the people that are quote-unquote awake. The people who are working to consciously create freedom are actually an enemy of the herd, of the collective unconscious. So creating a positive relationship with the self, the truth, and then others is always more important than that collective or that group or cause, right? Creating a positive relationship with the self, the truth, and then others, That's an important comma, and then others. So it's more important that you are living in truth, that you're living in selfhood, being the authentic self. That's more important than your relationship with other people, the relationship that you have to that authentic self, and the nurturing of that relationship. Only then can you actually really have a relationship that means anything with anyone else. Everything else is a fawning or a fake pseudo-self relationship, the mask that you're putting on. But there isn't really a positive relationship happening with the truth. The person isn't connected to searching for the truth, for just trying to discover the truth within themselves. or the truth about the nature of our reality. If those relationships aren't strong and being built, then what is it that we're doing with these other relationships then? Now, okay, the feeling good, we like to talk with each other. I get, good vibes around this, but all that's fine. But again, the pillar, the thing that needs to be the central organizing factor in order for you to be an authentic self, an authentic person in those relationships, is that relationship that you initially seek and have with, and I put an uppercase self, because the self being that connection that we all have to the universe, that uppercase self of the reality, that we're connected to. And the fact that that's true is your connection to that uppercase higher self, that we have a connection to that, and we can nurture and seek out that relationship, which again, the positive aspect there being that we can then move on to our movements, groups, and causes, okay, and being an authentic self and not getting lost in the group, not getting lost in the cause. So one other way that I'm putting this is your path to freedom is uniquely your own. It is the path of the individual and can never be the same for any other person, because there's sort of the people of the, like, you got to read this book and then you do this. And again, this is something that's an inner journey. The path to true care, the path to self-awakening, the initial steps is not something that someone else can make you do or instill in you. And if you read The Creature from Jekyll Island and then you go and you do this and then you start using Bitcoin and you blah, 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 it's not the things, it's not the physical stuff that we move around that starts the path to freedom for that person. And that could be very uniquely their own, as they are a fine cheesemaker and paint art, and that's how they live their life of freedom, while, understanding how to live in harmony with nature and its law. They don't need to be like an activist or a John Trudell or fill in the blank with whatever activist comes to mind when you think of an activist. They may not, maybe not. Maybe they are a software designer. Maybe they are into Python and C++ and ChatGPT and automation, and but the point is that person's path or tools, or things that they need to do or should be working on. This is another problem of the freedom movement, is people are constantly, oh, well, have you seen this one, or have you watched this documentary, or do you know about these particular facts about the vaccine, or do you know about these particular facts about how the Federal Reserve System works? And again, like, this is patriot mythology, basically. This is the cult-like aspect of the truth movement, the bowel movements of the freedom movement and the truth movement. Let me put it back on the full slide while I fix my chair again. Because when I'm doing a stream, of course, my chair can't stay up. Okay, so, yeah, and some people might not understand this point. Maybe I'm not doing the best job at explaining it, but it's meant for both sides. It's meant for the teachers to understand that there isn't just an exact path that someone takes to freedom, and it's for the student, the novice, the new guy, to know that you have to discover the unique things about you that you're going to bring forward in that point where you're going to start doing the right action. What does that mean for you? Because we get a lot of, basically just imitators of what other people are doing, which is fine. We're all trying to figure it out. We're all trying to find our way. But you have to keep in mind that, your journey is going to be very unique to your life, and it's not repeatable and just, oh, now I'll run out and tell everybody all the things that I just learned, and then they'll find their way to this. That's the raving lunatic weirdo at the Thanksgiving party, right? That's the person that's always pissing everyone off around them, or kind of just like beating the dead horse, or the same thing. And it's not going to work like that for the people in your immediate vicinity, for sure. Have direct experience with this. Okay, this is coming from wisdom here. This is stuff actually learned, that living it and being in action in vocation, in your own activation and wisdom of what you've learned, and then living it is much more powerful than trying to explain to somebody necessarily like how you came to that understanding exactly. Not that you can't like give links and references and books and pass along information or find someone that's receptive and teach them what you know or how you learned it. That's not what I'm saying either here. It's just I've seen it over and over and over again in the movement traps of this pattern of people thinking like it's the way that they did it needs to be how their family member does it and how their friend does it. And this is what we have to understand about ourselves is here from the Gospel of Thomas, but the kingdom is within you and it is outside of you. When you know yourselves, then you will be known, and you will know what you are, the sons of the living Father. But if you do not know yourself, then you are in poverty, and you are poverty. So again, it's self-knowledge, self-wisdom, uppercase self, love, and true care, and that connection to that, that really is what is going to help bring about freedom's rising. Said in another way from Viktor Frankl, when you are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. So again, is it out there? Is it everything that everybody else is doing? Is it the we needs or, the we need to do this, we need to do that? Or is it, again, you need to go look in the mirror and you need to say, what are you doing? What is it that you're changing? What is it that you are doing exactly? Where is your, great work at? What is the thing that you're putting forward into the world to help create more freedom and spread the truth and break down the mind control and get people out of mental slavery? Not what, but the collapse and the stock market and the election and the new virus and are you really, what's your ability to affect all that? Can we help other people understand things to help them stay safe and not make bad decisions? Yes. We're not saying you can't, but you definitely need to make sure we're pointing the fingers in the right direction here. When there's one pointed out there, there's three pointed right back this way, right? We're the ones who are responsible for our lives, not what's happening out there. It's how we respond to what's happening out there that matters. I need a button on my Stream Deck to change the slide. That would make things a lot easier. Every man's true teacher, this is coming from Manly P. Hall. Oh, Manly P. Hall. Oh, he's a Satanist. Oh, he's an occultist. Oh. Maybe Manly P. Hall wasn't just like a traditional straight Christian says it this way guy, but here how he says it is, every man's true teacher is his own higher self. And when the life is brought under the control of reason, the higher self is released from bondage to appetites and impulses and becomes priest and priestess, sage and illuminator. Absolutely, the higher self can be your guide. The higher, the lower, it's all the self. It's just the relationship again with the self. Is it higher, lower? Is it separated? Is it not attached? Is it all in schism? Or is it just the self that we become in relationship with? That we find the knowing sage and realize that it is the illuminator because we've experienced it enough times that you do learn to let that aspect of yourself guide you. So back again to Frankl. Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of life is, but rather must recognize that it is he who is asked. That's pretty deep and also sort of, let me give it another pass because it took me a minute. Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of life is, but rather must recognize that it is he who is asked. Again, where are we looking for the answer? Or do we have a knowledge that it could be us that already has the answer? That we might already be able to find the answer if we look in the right place? So freedom's rising. What is holding back freedom's rising? What is holding back the phoenix from rising from the ashes, or from even beginning the process of being engulfed in flame to become the ashes? What is the things that are holding that process back? And we have a small list here of lethargy, apathy, ignorance, fear, and I think mainly mind control. But we have these other factors as well. Are there other factors that I've left off the list? Yes, of course there are things that are holding back freedom's rising that aren't on the list. Again, today we're talking about unslaving the mind, and how that relates to freedom's rising. So in lethargy, we are choosing to be lazy because it's easier. I mean, this is simply put, it seems, and why I put easier in quotes is it seems easier to not have to do anything about any of this stuff, not have to do anything about the tyranny of the world, not have to do anything about, addressing our own food supply, not trying to produce locally or trying to produce food yourself, trying to address the solutions in the world, trying to, address the problems is what I meant. It's too hard, right? It's too much. It's much easier, quote unquote, to be lazy. The reason why I'm putting it in quotes is because this is the path to utter slavery. Us not taking action, us not getting into right action and choosing the Netflix or choosing some other distraction to get engaged with instead is only going to make slavery worse on this planet, and there'll be even less freedom than there already is because of our apathy, because of our lethargy. So choosing to be lazy is not easier. It just seems easier at the time, but it's really leading to a world of hell. So back in the struggle for freedom, another presentation I gave probably around the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, freedom is the last thing that he wants. This is from Esther Vayar's book, The Manipulated Man, and talking about, what's really going on inside. Freedom is the last thing he wants. He functions, as we shall see, according to the principles of pleasure in non-freedom. To be sentenced to lifelong freedom is a worse fate than living a lifelong slavery. Let me say that again. To be sentenced to lifelong freedom is a worse fate than lifelong slavery. To put it another way, man is always searching for someone or something to enslave him, for only as a slave does he feel secure. Yes?
Can I go to Mia's house?
You can ask Mom, okay?
My mom says yes.
Go out, go talk to Mom and Vinny if they're okay with it. I told my family, don't even worry about it. If you need to interrupt, just do it. It's not a big deal. I'm not worried about it. Again, this isn't like, oh, this production is the most perfect thing. If it's not perfect, we're doing the live. I have a family. Shouldn't be like some weird thing that my family members are here in the house with me. In fact, let's see if we can get the two dogs. Are they both in the shot? Chewie! Come here. I got two family members in here with me. One of them's by the door. Can't really see him. And then the other back here, Mosley. He makes an appearance in a lot of my streams, huh? Huh, Cho-Cho. Come here, Cho-Cho. Okay. So you can kind of see him there, huh? He's a good boy. They just like hanging out with Dad and saying, Dad, when are we going to go on a walk? That's what they're thinking. When are we going to get up and go on a walk, huh? Cho-Cho's a good boy, huh? Okay. I pushed the wrong button. I knew that was coming. So back to the struggle for freedom. Again, this is really what's happening within the mind of the slave, the creature of control. You could basically look at this as that it's an Eric Fromium, escape from freedom. The real thing that's going on here is that people don't even actually really want true freedom. And what they want is the government, Big Daddy, Big Mommy freedom, or my freedom movement, right? as long as I get my thing or I have it my way or I'm able to travel, that's freedom. Fuck everybody else that's actually being stomped on by this. And the fact that, we're basically enforcing our will and our way of seeing the world on people that maybe don't agree with that. For example, I don't know, like people that think that there shouldn't be a thing like gun ownership. So people that perfectly are responsible with weapons and guns and can hunt or protect their families with that gun safely and effectively and also responsibly should have their right to do that taken from them, which again, you can't legitimately do that in nature. It's just something they'll claim to do and actually then use the physical force to get it done. And that's also where we're headed. But seeing that's, well, now I feel more safe, so that's our freedom as America to be able to do things like that, right? Yeah, that's the exact opposite of freedom. And really, this is what's going on inside of a person like that. As long as they're feeling safe and comfortable and everything's in order and, they're getting their pellets and their universal basic income or whatever, or the, thing that the government is offering them, then that's real freedom, right? Or a complete running away from that. And so we have apathy as well. So choosing to believe what is not true because it's easier. That's one form of apathy, right? Sort of just, whatever. I don't really want to get into it. It's easier just to go along. And also, as the slide says, in the people with the masks over their eyes, there are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what isn't true, and the other is to refuse to believe what is true. So again, a form of apathy to, and it's lethargy, ignorance, it all sort of ties into the same thing of, it's too difficult to understand that, or I don't really want to, or the group doesn't, or, how could I change my ways because I'm this certain way? And so it's a form of apathy to be apathetic to caring enough to be the constant learner, to be able to be, I don't mean manipulated in a bad way, I mean malleable, to be able to be malleable with things as they come up or as you learn and discover these new things that should change your behavior, should change the way that you see the world. But instead, there's a form of apathy that ends up putting us in a condition like this where, these sheep might have had other options, but at the moment they're headed for the New World Order. And they're in their minds, well, there's only one way to go, I guess, I guess that's just the way we go over this way. Like, that's kind of what it seems like with the future shock, or even like the COVID thing was, like, they'll just keep pounding and pounding and pounding and pounding to eventually the person just kind of gives up. Like, okay, I'm tired of hearing about it, whatever. Like, what do we need to do here to get this done? Like, I don't care. I'm not going to like try to understand more about what could be going on here. Just get it over with. Give me the thing to get this over with. That was the whole sell and pitch with the injections, right? Was kind of beating it into you essentially like this until the point where the only way you got to go is the one way. Like, that's it. You're headed for the slaughterhouse New World Order, and that's it, buddy. And that's exactly where apathy has gotten us to now. That's exactly the slaughterhouse that we're headed for now. And it, there is ways out of this, but it seems like to these sheep that's it. That's the way to go. Nicholas Carr from The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains, says, the more distracted we become, the less we are able to experience the subtlest, most distinctively human forms of empathy, compassion, and other emotions. So that also plays into it. That's again the lethargy, the apathy, the distraction of just give me the thing to make it go away, and I just want to watch this other stuff. And then we have so much of that, so much of the dopamine drip and addiction now, even so much of this going on, that our own empathy is being destroyed. Our ability to connect and care about other things. It's just like, another school shooting. Oh yeah, another bomb went off in wherever. Oh yeah, America and Russia gonna go to nuclear. It's like kind of getting to the point where it's like, well, whatever. Again, the apathy. Now maybe it's a normal human reaction with everything that's going on in the world, but it's a choice actually, and choosing the truth is, again, here in this slide, that one of the hardest pills to swallow. people are running as far and as fast away from the truth, away from their true selves, and away from the freedom as they can. And this is a choice. This is something, again, that the person has to choose, but ignoring it is what they're doing. So that ignorance, it's not something that they have the ability to understand and just don't. Well, that is ignorance. Nescience would be not knowing because you can't know, because the information's not available. Now the information is available about, it's hard to know which topic are you talking about, the truth. Well, in this case, the truth of our own condition. Again, like in the beginning of the last episode with Morpheus and Neo. Well, what truth? That you are a slave, Neo. That all your life that you've been in bondage, right? That truth. The truth that you are a slave. And if you don't know that, then that makes you even more of a slave. Because you're not like the prisoner. You're not the person trying to escape the Matrix. You're the prisoner that is willfully being a prisoner if you don't know that. And that's only way that you wouldn't know that is through ignoring the fact, ignoring it, being ignorant of the. All right, so my streaming software crashed, so I should be back streaming now, and we're back online. I'll have to fix whatever happened in post. No problem. I'm just checking out a couple things here, like on Odysee. Am I still live, or how is that working now? Is it connected to the same stream? It looks like it is, so just take me a little bit longer in post today to fix that. I think I got the recording locally of everything that had been up to the point of the crash, and then there probably is a recording of that on Odysee too. And so we'll just continue on. That's okay. So things like that are bound to happen. And that's why we have backup plans and contingencies. And today was the first time that's happened in a while, being in the middle of a stream and then suddenly OBS just locked up. Hopefully that doesn't mean I'm going to continue to have problems as I try to get through the rest of the presentation here. And let's get back into it with where I was at in the presentation. That's what I did. I pressed the wrong button and then suddenly everything froze up. So I must have jinxed myself earlier. All right. So again, truth being the hardest pill to swallow because people don't want to swallow it. They're choosing to ignore it. One way to put that is that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own soul. A classic quote from C.G. Jung. And, he's encapsulated that here, that ignorance is something that people do as a choice, but they'll make it look, they'll do all kinds of backflips and cartwheels and things to make it look like that, that they really do care and that they're really living in truth, but they're really just sort of trying to do everything possible to avoid their own soul. And again, with the recent pandemic, sort of riffing on that here with the masks, this person has a new mask that will help them from seeing, hearing, or speaking about what's really going on. So now you can just wear a whole different type of mask in order to deal with reality. But of course, we know one of the main reasons why that people are living in this condition is through fear. We've been discussing this. Fear is the mind killer. We've been going over this topic in the last 2 or 3 episodes and covering fear, uncertainty, and doubt, the weapons used with the tool of fear to control the population. And here, you see the government's doing shady shit, but the pandemic, who knows what kind of stuff really went on, with the Grand Theft World pandemic kickoff to 2030, bringing in the New World Order. But it's it's the coronavirus pandemic that we need to be worried about, not the totalitarian push for world domination through the Great Reset. But But don't worry, we've got mind control happening here with a lot of brainwashed slaves on this planet. So just a brief warning on that here, that we've got a whole planet full of people that are willing to just go along with whatever the mind control and conditioning says. So mind control, of course, part of it being the left-right paradigm, not the only aspect, but a large aspect of it is the political arena. And there is no left or right, there is only tyranny and freedom. But the left-right paradigm, of course, used to keep that paradigm in place of slavery. And politics are really just an apparatus for controlling the mind of the populace. That's really what media and politics and democracy and all this is really just a form of mind control. It's the form of how to actually control the population. So one of the solutions is to inoculate yourself, not against COVID, but against mind control, against the mind control of the media. And also, from the great poet Ezra Pound, again, going back to how we need to become activated, how we need to get into action, a slave is one who waits for someone to come and free him. So a slave is someone who's still not in action into creating the conditions of freedom and manifesting that in their own life, but someone who's still, we should, the group, once I get my freedom cell together, we're going to do these things, and, then we need to start using Bitcoin, and we need, and we need, and we need, and we need, and the we needs, right? They're not going to make it. What we really need here is to unslave ourselves, right? Because enslaving ourselves is something that no one else can do. Again, going back to initiating the process with that true care and empathy and compassion that initiates the process of self-love for the real self and the real love, not like a girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife type of love or child love, not talking about that, but the true love of the self, becoming in worship of nature and its law. That's only something that you can do, because no one else can do that. No one else can enslave you. So a person's reality can be altered through manipulation, says Dennis Wynn. We're going to get into here a little bit of the other side of this and more into the mind control aspect. And so Dennis Wynn says a person's reality can be altered through manipulation. The manipulated mind, from the book The Manipulated Mind, Brainwashing, Conditioning, and Indoctrination. So what's that all about, Tyler? I thought we were just talking about unslaving the mind today. Well, when people think about mind control, they think about different things from, maybe MK Ultra, or like the CIA was doing these certain things. And that's probably actually all true. And so we do need to understand more of like the hard stuff, the hard evidence, the hard mind control. And also, though, those that have used the media to manipulate us, those that have used the media to create global mind control and mass scale control of the masses through mind control of the masses through the media. What do you think they're going to be doing with some of this newer technology, like generative AI and generative content creation engines? And do you think it's all just going to be used to free us and we're all going to be, no. The tools that are being developed now will also be used for mind control. So in this next clip, try to imagine the modern day. This person is not talking from the understanding all the modern tools of what's happening now. But this is what's coming up here is going to be Stephen Jacobson, who wrote the book Mind Control in America, with a foreword from Anthony Sutton. Riffs here on mind control, and we're going to go into that clip. But the reason why we're covering that is to give me the intermission to get out of the slides, and we'll move on to the wrapping up the show today. But also that it's important to understand these more kind of hard aspects of mind control as we discuss unslaving the mind, right? Because that is part of keeping the mind enslaved, is through mind control. So the other slide before we reach that says Mind control is achieved through manipulation of consciousness by Donald Bain. The Control of Candy Jones is the book that came from. And now what we're going to do, as I double check the tech after we had that crash and try to see how we're going to recover the content here and make sure that it all pieces back together okay, we're going to head into an intermission, and hopefully, like I said, there are no more hiccups like that today, but it's rare when something like that does happen. But yeah, the streaming software just totally locked up on me, so I apologize for those trying to watch live. I don't get a lot of live viewers, and then, on the day that there might be a few people watching, the stream crashes out on me. So yeah, but we gotta work through stuff like that, and obviously that's gonna happen. So we're gonna head into the intermission. Again, this is Stephen Jacobson on mind control, and let's get ready to head into that. I think it's about an 8-minute clip, and then I'll be back to summarize and kick off towards the ending of the episode here. So thank you guys for tuning in today, and I'll see you on the other side of this clip.
The basic problem is that we are living in a virtual reality. We're living in a totally controlled environment, an environment that has been created by mass media. Now, many people, especially young people, accept unquestioningly the reality that is presented by the media. Popular culture, movies, television, music, carry messages about how society works and how people should behave. And so entertainment is not value-free. It has ideological content. It presents a worldview that influences the people who watch the programming. There is a reason why television networks and the music industry, the various companies, they have programming departments. The programming that we are constantly assaulted by throughout our life conditions us. It programs us to a particular worldview. Now, we may consider it normal because we were born into the system of lies and deception. In fact, deception has become part of the social framework of society. And because we were born into this situation and our parents were born into it and have suffered from it, we don't know any better. And so we don't necessarily see things as they are. We see things as we are. Now, there are two primary means by which people are manipulated and controlled. One is very simple, very basic, and that is simply the control of information and the control of, if we don't have all of the facts on any particular topic, then our judgment is going to be no better than the quality of our information. And in spite of the fact that we have an information overload through all the information that's available on the internet and other sources, we have to have the presence of mind to be able to evaluate the information that we have available. And it's a matter of having to dig through and determine what's true, what are the lies, what are the half-truths, under that one basic heading, information control, where there has been a long-held consolidation of ownership of the different medias, press, publishing, film, music, television, consolidated ownership into the hands of very few individuals, the multinational corporations. Today, there are half a dozen multinational corporations that are controlling the information and entertainment choices that people have. Working as an editor, it was easy to see how simple it is to change the meaning of an event or change the meaning of what someone says through editing. And so I was very well aware of how plastic and moldable media reality was. But I didn't fully appreciate the extent to which we are all manipulated and controlled by media, including those people who work in it. Using television as the prime example of how mental programming and mind control works, television is the most powerful weapon of psychological warfare in history. And yet, television, for many people, is a member of the family in the household.
It's the primary member.
Yes.
It runs the household.
Yes, well, not only that, but it's the primary source of information, and the television, in effect, represents an altar, a religious altar that the nation is worshiping before. Many people don't think about the things that affect them subconsciously, because generally they don't know what to look for until someone comes around and starts pointing these things out to them, and then they can see how we are all influenced by unseen forces without our conscious awareness. In fact, the ultimate control is to control people without their conscious awareness. Again, television is a prime example. Think back to whenever you have observed young children or older adults sitting watching television. They have this glassy-eyed, vacant look in their eyes because they are in a trance state, in a hypnotic state of mind. This is very important, very significant, that the medium of television has the capacity to do this, and it doesn't matter what you're watching. The flickering effect of the television image, although it appears to be static and stationary, it is actually flickering. We don't see it consciously, but subconsciously, the repeating visual pattern of the flicker induces the trance state. And that's the basic principle behind hypnotic programming, is that you get the subject to focus the attention of the conscious mind on one of the five senses. So in the case of watching television, we're talking about the sense of sight and the flickering image. In the case of sound, any repeating sound pattern will induce the trance state. Now, why this is important is that we are more suggestible to mental programming during this state of mind than at any other time. We're very vulnerable to manipulation at this time, because the first order of business for a propagandist or an advertiser is to create the circumstances that will induce a state of mind that is favorable to the reception of their message. And that state of mind is the hypnotic state of mind, making television extremely important in this whole process of creating a unified mindset among the entire population. Have you ever bought something and then later on wondered, why did you buy it? I think we've all had that kind of experience.
Quite a few times.
Well, that's a common everyday illustration of being triggered to make a purchase based on a conditioned response that has been built into us to have a preference for a particular product. In fact, that is the whole point of programming, whether it be by an advertiser or a propagandist. There's really no difference between the two. One's selling products, the other is selling ideas. The whole point is to build into us a conditioned response where we will respond automatically without thinking, with a preference for a particular idea or preference for a particular product. And that is the whole point of programming. If you think about it, whenever you hear news broadcasters speak, you realize that regardless of their ethnic background, whether they be black, white, Hispanic, or Oriental, they all have a similar manner of speaking. They have a speech pattern that is associated with the dissemination of true factual information on the news broadcast. Their speech pattern is similar to the patterned speech of a hypnotist. The news broadcaster looks directly into the camera and into the eyes of the viewer. Another hypnotic technique. The newscaster is an authority figure, encouraging the acceptance of the information. People, one, will accept information that comes from an accepted and respected authority. And then the repetition of the information over and over and over again is what builds that conditioned response, so that whenever they are presented with the information again, then they'll accept it automatically without thinking about it.
Do you think that the media is complicit in sort of the mind control aspect? Do you think that they are, because I'm a firm believer that the media is completely controlled.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that's my feeling as well, in my experience, that the media has become the fourth branch of government.
So it seems like the stream is going okay. I personally am having some issues kind of monitoring just the stream on my phone, but on like the desktop, for example, Odysee seems to be all right. I know that Odysee can kind of skip around a little bit. So again, if you go to tylerbloyer.com, there's a banner at the top that says Freedom's Rising. You can click on that. You'll go to freedomsrising.live, and the stream is there as well. You can also click, watch Tyler go live right there at the top on my page, and it will take you to a page that should be playing the Odysee embed. If you're having issues on your cell phone, then maybe it's just something weird with the cell phone or the mobile app. Again, I'm watching a monitor that's just on my PC right now, and it's not having the same issues. So anyway, so yeah, that clip, of course, somewhat dated. People don't watch television anymore. I think there are probably people that do, but you know what I mean? And like, even like saying television, like it's just weird to think about that's sort of being phased out, right? And now there's, again, some of the new stuff that's coming along with AI and the ability for it to personalize and adapt an algorithm towards your behavior, towards your likes and preferences is going to be, of course, it's going to be awesome for some reasons. Like I've always talked about, like I'm watching Pandora, listening to Pandora, and eventually the algorithm is just going to be able to understand if I like a song or not and move on to something else or mix in something with the types of music that I'm getting. But it will know based on scanning my telemetry, by scanning my biometric data, by just understanding sort of what my mouth twitches like or what my eyes do when I'm enjoying something, and understanding you to a level of that degree for fun things like that. But then imagine the ability to manipulate. Imagine the power that someone would have with a powerful AI directed right at your brain. This powerful, massive supercomputer, quantum computing abilities and stuff, calculating everything precisely down to, and then pointing and propagandizing you with that power. And you won't even understand that you're being manipulated, is my thought. And what I've always said is it's not necessarily, what we've discussed here today is like the struggle for freedom and we're going to go and we're going to get, it's like the struggle in the future is going to be to remain sane, to even be somewhat connected to reality, to not just, be lost in all the craziness with what computers will be generating in our reality for what our reality will seem like it is. But then, like I said, if you mix that in with a path of, like I said, we're on a path to be where freedom will be completely bred out if we don't, fight for freedom, and we don't protect and sorry, I'm now getting other technical problems here. If we do not ensure and enshrine freedom and the principles of freedom in our children and teach them how to remain free, freedom will be a thing that wasn't even remembered or understood, or it won't even be a subject of interest. It won't even be a topic of understanding, period, the end. But it's like that whole you will own nothing and be happy. Like, you won't even know what the fuck's going on. Like, you won't even know what ownership is. You're going to be entranced and completely entangled in this mind control apparatus of AI that I believe will be used against you by the elite class, by the ruling psychopaths, by the oligarchs, by the cartels, whatever you want to call it, the T3, they, them, those that won't leave us alone, as Ernie Hancock would say it. Whoever they are, those people that won't leave us alone, the people like the Gatesian, Schwabian enigma, like their essence, those types of people, right? They will be using this technology against you. They will be using it to control you. They will be using it to aim directly at us. And the fact that we're even able to sort of play around with some things that are kind of like AI right now are, it's even amazing. But the fact, the internet was created by the military. The vaccines that everybody took, that was a DARPA thing, a military thing. The gain of function was developed by the military. everything in your modern world that makes up what it is was a militarized technology developed by the military. Facebook was lifelogged by DARPA before it became Facebook. The fact that, oh, now you have OpenAI, you have access, that's obviously something used to collect the data even more on us to be able to manipulate us further down the road. Just like with the NSA and Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff that's going on. Oh, it's only Twitter that covered up the Biden laptop. Like, do you think that's the only thing that's been going on with as far as what's going on with these social media companies and how they're being used to manipulate you? So yeah, AI, I think that we don't understand it as the general public. I don't think I do. I don't think that we're really understanding the trap that we're walking into by just kind of allowing it in our lives without even really understanding how to defend against it. I do think it's an awesome tool. I use and learn and try to understand more about it and use the tools that are available like ChatGPT and some of the artwork generators I've been playing around with, and will probably at one point be creating my thumbnails using something that has to do with that. I mean, even Canva, the thing that I use to create these slideshow presentations, has an AI assistant. Notion that I use has an AI assistant. Seems like everything has their own little thing. And that's only like what we understand about it. I was thinking the other day, what if we didn't know what AI was? And then like somebody did know and they were trying to explain it to you, what it was, but you had never heard of it, didn't know what it was. What would you envision this thing as? Like, what do you mean there's a thing that I can type in and it types back? Like, who's typing back? Well, it's this algorithm that creates, goes on the deep knowledge of everything that it's been fed as information and then calculates the best way to put it back. I mean, that would be like what someone's trying to explain. So you're like, oh, so it's this like chat, like AOL kind of thing, right? That's, I think, even like the Overton window shifted in the wrong direction. Like, that's not what AI is going to be doing, and how it will affect our lives is not even understood yet by people. And it is very dangerous, the direction that we're headed. Not because I think the machines are going to take over, but I think that the governments of the world will be in battle between this sort of bio-psy war, viruses and nanobots and attacks like that people don't even they're going to launch nukes at us. Like, that's probably not how it's all going to go down with the next World War III, is like psi war, but then also like the bio war, weapons that aren't even understood in the environment, right? Including cyber and AI. And that will be understood by the most powerful militaries on the planet, who will then claim that it must be under their control because of the security threat that it is. And they're probably not wrong that it's a security threat, but that's my biggest risk factor, I think, is not just that the cyberpunks or these people are going to start creating viruses with AI. I think that the most powerful militaries, and hence then the governments, and then hence the people behind the governments that are really the shadow government behind the scenes controlling things, the elite psychopath Luciferian death cult, will be the ones in power of the most powerful AI on the planet by necessity in their minds, by we have to do this to control blah, 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 just like they do with everything else. We have to depopulate the planet in this way because if we don't, the oceans are going to rise. We have to take control of the AI. So I just see that that's the direction it's headed, no matter what we do. But imagine the tools that they'll come up with in order to do more behaviorism on you, right? In order to create the social conditioning, the cybernetic loops, and things like that with this new technology. So that's what we're going to have to learn how to defend against in the future, and not like in the distant future, like now, right now. We need, and I would say we need now. We need to come up with technologies to defend against deep fakes, to understand when something's AI and when it's not. And so when it becomes to the point where your human brain can't interpret if something's real or not, and it looks real regardless, you can't really tell, we're definitely going to have methods of interpreting with it, probably other AIs. Is this an AI generated thing happening, or is this reality? Because if we don't, then I think we're headed for like a chimeric, furry, transgender, transhuman, do whatever, say whatever future that it's really not based in any sort of reality, and that very well could be the end of this human experiment thing, because we've gone so far off the rails at that point that, yeah, it might be really bright and flashy colors towards the end there, but I think we should really try to avoid that catastrophe that we're stepping into daily, even further every day. So we will continue. I have a few slides here, okay, and then we'll wrap up the show. I want to show what I was trying to use AI to talk about human slavery and have it generate some cover art for me. And this is one of the things, images that it came up with here. I thought that was pretty funny. It just looks, and like the words that I get back sometimes, I don't know if I haven't trained my prompts properly. I don't know a lot about the generator. I was using Starry AI to generate this. There's probably some way to make it understand or to write in English, but there was some problem with that. I was trying to pull up some of the other pictures I had here. Yeah, so here's that one. I can't remember what I put in there to get these. Like, these were, let's see, the elephant ones we'll come back to, but here's, yeah, like, it was like free your mind, and these are some of the, here's another one. The elephant ones are what I always said, like, you know, like when people say, well, anything is possible, you can do anything that you can imagine. I was like, well, I can imagine, you know, you heard that growing up as a kid, right? I was like, I can imagine elephants, rainbow elephants on the moon launching with rainbow exhaust coming out of their satellites. Like, is that, if I can imagine it, we can make it happen. Is that true? Well, now with AI, I guess that is true. You can make rainbow elephants on the moon launching with rainbow colored exhaust, and it did it within like 2 seconds of me putting in that thought in there. So I thought that was the first image I ever created with AI, was rainbow elephants on the moon with rainbow colored exhaust being launched, and that's what it came up with there. So just kind of a funny anecdote to what we've been discussing here today. All right, and with that said, we'll go to talking about the getting out of this episode, backing on out of here, hoping there's no more software freezes, and then I'll get this compiled one way or the other into the full episode. Now it's going to take me longer today because my process just got all screwed up because of the software crash, but it's a long weekend, a holiday weekend. Take the extra time, get it out there. We will be continuing on these topics. This is, again, is not the full, this was everything encapsulated in this one episode of Freedom's Rising. Like, this is now, and if you add it to the series, would be the 33rd episode of the series. He's a Freemason. Did you hear he said 33? No, we got left in the ice when we did the Freedom's Rising series. I stopped at 32. And so we're not numbering. I've decided to let all numbers go. We're just doing a flow of episodes, a flow of consciousness. Topics. We have Bio-Psi War, falling in the movement traps. I used to do walk and talk, so I might get back into that. Creature of Control. Liberty Lifestyle. Alt Life. Alt Eats. This stuff is lifelong projects. Yeah, it would be cool to say one day you're at 1,000 episodes of this or that, but I found that being able to sort of keep going back and filling the slots on these particular topics, and then adding a topic, and we'll keep going back and updating and revising our journey with the Creature of Control, and we'll continue to discuss these things from various aspects of investigation, and that way, you know, we keep it fresh, we keep it honest. If we make mistakes, we'll come back and correct it. We're not claiming to be a complete 100% expert here or a perfect individual, a Jesus type person. You know, we're just using the skill set that I have to put out the content in a way that I hope is creative for certain people, that they will find consumable, and we'll try to, you know, continue to up the quality as we move on down the road here. So Freedom's Rising content is not done. We are definitely not done with the topic. We're going to have to come back probably in the next series and continue on what things are blocking Freedom's Rising. So we need to go in depth more on not just like the mental hurdles and the, enslaved mind that we talked about today. That's lethargic, apathetic, ignorant, mind controlled, doesn't really care, doesn't have true care. But what are the other things blocking Freedom's Rising? Maybe we can take one topic and go more in depth on that. Maybe we bring in some more content from other creators to highlight certain aspects of what we've discovered along the way, right, towards our path to Freedom's Rising. And some of those that we'll definitely be continuing to highlight in that journey are who we're going to exit the series here, or the episode today with Michael Tessarion on unslavement. Again, as far as I know, Michael created the unslaved term. He has a podcast called Unslaved. He currently produces the content and puts it in that website, Unslaved. And I happen to know other producers, content creators out there who sort of just ignore that, and they're the Unslaved. Like there's this guy, Paul Unslaved, who basically uses that word, and I don't think ever references or gives credit to Michael, or if he does, it's kind of like, well, fuck Michael Tessarion, I fucking did it, like, I don't know. I don't watch a lot of that dude's content, but I'm trying to give full credit where credit's due, and Michael Tessarion has been a big influence on my journey. I know there's some rifts between him and some of the sort of the natural law or anarchist people and the One Great Work Network type folks, because Michael's a statist, because he doesn't just exactly fully agree with how everything is stated by Mark Passio or by other people, and doesn't just completely narrate exactly how everybody says the thing, that he's a statist then. Oh, he's just a statist. It's just such a simplified way of looking at how what I think really needs to happen here is an upgrading of the language that we're all using, and not all using the exact same terms to explain everything. And we all, have to say it this certain way. And if you really do think that like someone like Michael is it's just so simplified, he just must be some crazy statist because he doesn't just fully agree with anarchy the way that we say that anarchy is, and he says it's another way. Even though if you watch his work, he definitely has gone into differentiating the types of anarchism as well. He just doesn't focus solely on this one topic and only discuss things in that one way. But he's been a big influence on me and impact in my work, as well as the style, even with the slideshow. We're going to go back in the future and cover more of Michael's work, like I said, but Michael Tessarion on unslavement in a more recent footage stuff from him, not back to like Age of Manipulation or those other early 2000s even presentations, but this is a more recent clip. It's audio only, has like a cover art over it, and he'll be talking about his take on some of the things having to do with enslavement. So that'll be interesting to close out the episode. And then I'll come back and do a quick outro into the outro music for today and introduce what that's going to be at that point. So for now, we're just going to let Michael take over here and get into that. See you in a minute.
If you're in the conspiracy movement, you're somebody like me who's got a career, been doing all this work, a lot of it can seem to be critical, negative or whatever. It's really not, but it comes across that way. So people are saying, you keep on deconstructing things, you keep on complaining about the way things are, but what are the solutions? So it's very important to be accurate, because there's going to be a lot of knee-jerk reaction just to anyone critiquing so deeply the system. So therefore, a person like me has to have their facts together. They've got to have read, they have to know what they're talking about, and they have to offer coherent solutions. So when I say that, the fist that crushes the tyrant's head becomes a tyrant in its stead, these are deeply profound anecdotes, deeply profound sayings. When I say that, it's complicity on our side, it's not just gun to the head. When I say these things, you're going to the deepest of the sages, their work. Your Tolstoys. Government is an organization that does violence to the rest of us. Tyranny is more organized than freedom, etc. We are drawing upon a long line of thinkers from all walks of life: newspapermen, journalists, savants, poets, all the way up to the top level philosophy. Not to mention the psychologists, and sometimes I pull from people who are on the right wing, some people I pull from the left wing. That's really immaterial, because at some point people have complaints about the way things are. But it's no good approaching people in today's world with those complaints unless you have coherent solutions. Otherwise, you're just a malcontent, and that only a lot of bands, musical bands, have that. A lot of people just waving placards. Malcontent you can find on any street corner, but somebody who can say, "Here's the solution. Don't leave consciousness at the door. Observe the way, like you just said, in which I've enslaved myself. What is it in my psyche that needs the authority figure?" This is automatically taking us into the realm of deep psychology, deep philosophy. If somebody follows you down that path, they may say, "Oh yeah, some of this sounds familiar. We've had some religious people, we've had some theologians who worry about the fate of man. He's becoming too collectivized, or he's becoming too superficial. We've got people even in the evangelist movement who are worried about marketing." And I agree with them. I'm not an evangelist, and I don't like most of what evangelists are up to, but you'll find plenty of areas where there's a crossover, where those people are deadly afraid of the effects of marketing, of advertising, of the pornographization, or whatever you want to call it, the lewdness and the general immorality of society. And they're correct. So, but could I sit down at the table with one of those guys? I would, but they won't. So when you're in the conspiracy movement, you're the sort of friend of no one, enemy of everyone. And it's going to take time then for the enslaved the enslaved to even realize what your benefit is. Because I've noticed that people in general who, as long as they see you looking familiar, looking like them, coming from the same world with them as them, waving your PhD around, looking like you're suit and tie, straight up and down guy, or even in any way that you look like them, like the audience, they will listen more uncritically to what you're saying. If you're somebody like me who doesn't come from any other background, I'm not coming from art or computers or teaching or business or high finance, or computers or whatever. I'm coming from the esoteric tradition. I don't look like my audience for the most part. And if you also happen to be someone who is different in other ways, and your message is a bit obscure, people's arms are folded and they're much more critical. You can see the furrows on their brow. He's deceiving me. Is he trying to say evil is good? And every defense mechanism is up. Now, I'm not against that, because I can hold my own. I'm bulletproof, and I can talk you down. I have nothing to fear, nothing to hide. But there is this enslavement that says, if he looks like Joe Schmo, if he looks like the guy next door, I'll believe it. And the defenses are down. If it's somebody that from outside that world, they have to win their stripes. They have to walk over, broken glass. And then the latter day sort of Johnny, the sort of, bandwagon hoppers, are able to come in through the jungle that you've helped carve a way through. It's a green light all the way from them. So in a way, there's good and bad to that. By having to go that extra distance to convince people, I've become, in my career, bulletproof. I've become a lot more, erudite. I've become more factual than I was, say, 10 years ago or whatever. I've developed, and I've had my facts down, so that now when I know the few who do come, and they come with admiration, and they come with true, genuine need and open receptivity, then, the package that I'm handing, I think, is second to none, because of that tempering, and that going through the furnace, where other people are still, a jumble of sort of miscellaneous stuff. They've surfed the internet, or they've, read a few sound bites, and then they present themselves as some sort of expert, That's okay. We need it for all levels. But with my work, with what you and I are doing, there's a whole different level. Some people could call it raising the bar, but it's been just a slow maturation of a good wine over a longer period of time, and that has its own benefits, because it's more thought out, it's more deep. And so, yeah, there's enslavement, but that's on many levels. It depends what people want. And at some point, they're going to have to come to this alignment where they're saying, I understand completely what Michael is saying. It's not just about the gun to the head, Orwellian, draconian thing, the boot on the face of humanity. It's about myself. So now this thing becomes, to cut a long story short, as I've said before, it's holy work. The very moment that somebody realizes, oh my goodness, this is about me, there's going to be a different kind of perspiration on the brow. There's going to be a different kind of homework involved. There's going to be a different kind of intensity in that enslavement. It's not just, giving you a bunch of facts so that you know that tyranny exists, or that some crime families have been, going back to the time of Egypt. That's all very important. Or who really controls the world, etc., etc. Those are all vital things to know. But always, the root of my tree, the foundations of my building in this go much deeper. They go back into the psyche. They talk about psychic sovereignty. They talk about psychic immunity. They talk about how the master manipulates your own psychological weaknesses. And the moment that somebody really truly grasps that, then they're on the road to being completely unslaved. But it's going to be a journey that not every one of their fellows, will want to take. Haven't you heard people forever regale people like us about, where's the solutions? It's like, where's the solutions? Like, you want to play a one-armed bandit and just get an immediate laundry list of here's to-dos. There are solutions. I deal with solutions. But the person who's asking that question forgets that I can give you a tool, like a physical tool, right? And tell you, go fix that computer, go fix those speakers, go tinker around with, and if you've never seen that thing before, or you have no idea how to use a screwdriver or a ratchet or some other even more complex, like go and do surgery, here's a knife. You're not going to be able to do it. So the person who screams for solutions, that's always gone through one ear out the other. Although I deal in solutions, I'm not a fool. You don't just walk into the military academy as a private and then become a general right away. I'm asking that person who's screaming that way, oh, who are you? Are you clean enough to even apply the solution? Could you carry it out? In order to become a good soccer player, a good ball player, a good baseball player, a good golfer, haven't you had to go through a probationary period? Tell me one thing of meaning in a person's life, from their schooling to other extracurricular, riding a bike even, let alone, as you're saying, the martial arts. Everyone will acknowledge that they came in as an acolyte. They came in as a neophyte, and they had to win their stripes. But on the internet and in this community, you get people there with folded arms talking about, give me the solution. And I could give you the solution, but I don't know that you are efficient enough or accredited enough to go into the enemy camp and do damn all with it. And in fact, as I look around the world and I see all these Occupy movements and We Are Changes and many others I could mention, and even individuals within this movement, naming no names, swindlers and all sorts of con artists, how do I know that the person who's screaming for answers is even capable of applying even one of those solutions? So, and it becomes all the more important when you're dealing with the physical. Like, for instance, say we are talking about shadow work. We've really nailed something key about our solutions, about, getting fit, losing weight, toughening up, being alert, how your daily pattern is, not in a militaristic or regimented way, but in a good holistic way. Yeah, but so then some guy who hasn't done one iota of any of that work, hasn't even concerned himself, he's guzzling big gulps, and his diet's full of sugar and God knows what else. You're going to tell me now that person is, like we said, on the way to wholesomeness and to be enslaved? No, they're not. But that person may have been screaming 24/7, these guys have got no solutions. The solutions, the solutions have been there for hundreds of years. Go read Gustave Le Bon, go read Ayn Rand. I can give you a list of 10 people that you could master in 2 years. Even the reading list wouldn't even take you more than a year or 2 years if you really were serious. I've said this before, I think, we've talked about this in other shows, that even a Michael Tsarian reading list, and this even includes your Nathaniel Brandons and, a few others that people might not have heard of. But if you really were serious about it, you could get within 18 months, you'd pretty much know, what you're doing. And a good, intelligent person, starting from scratch, I think they'd make such incredible progress that after 2 years, they'd be teaching you the stuff you gave them. So then what on earth is the problem? The solutions have already been out there. A person like me is only a filtration system, right? Knowing that people don't have the 30 years of research. So I try to say, okay, I've done a lot of research and I filter down to the best of the best. in different subject categories. And it's like teaching somebody an instrument, say a guitar. You have to look at their hands. You've got to say, what kind of music do you even like? You can't just walk into a guitar shop and buy one. I've got to know a lot about you first. Because there's also different sizes and different gauges of strings and all sorts of different, you might buy a guitar completely wrong for the kind of music that you're heading down to play. If you play classical or jazz, it's gonna matter. The size of your hands, the stature of your body, the way you like to sit. It's all gonna matter. And it's exactly the same with these solutions. So I'm not there to dispense solutions. I'm there to bring the person in, but I can't walk that journey for them. I can only say, here's the categories. If you're into Atlantis or ancient this, or say you're into astrotheology, or you like numbers and geometry and sacred geometry and, gematria and that, or no, you want to talk more about the tarot and divination. I try to create a whole smorgasbord of categories that people can come in and say, these are the best of the great thinkers in this movement. But if somebody picks up, oh, wait a minute, my God, Aleister Crowley? Manly Palmer Hall? They're evil. I'm off of here. Oh my God, the whole thing stinks. Hey, do I run after them and go, what are you doing? No, I let them go. Go back to the world, mate. Go back to ignorance. With my blessing. Go ahead. The beast will just eat you alive. If you're truly with a hunger, then you realize these people have provided solutions for you, but I need to come there. I need to get my arms around all the information. I need to study what interests me and leave the rest. I shouldn't even, people come to me all the time, especially by email, and say, Michael, where should I start? What should I do? What do you think of this guy? What do you think of that guy? And I'll say, I can tell you a few places to start, but I'm sorry, I can't answer these next questions where you're asking me about the work of other people, because I don't comment on it. Because if you knew anything about my work, and of course newbies, they don't, so I then have to always explain it. But sometimes I get a little touchy when it's somebody who I know has been around a while, and they're asking me those kinds of questions. Haven't you got the gist of what my work is? My gist is not to be holding your hand. You go study whatever interests you. But I'm not going to I'm not going to say what I think of Gurdjieff or what I think of this guy or that guy, not in depth anyway. You are the one to go look at that stuff, research it. If it sings to you, then by all means. If you like the Course in Miracles, or you like the Bible, or you like like you're saying Chinese Oriental philosophy more than something from the West, that's all your own sort of selection. I'm not there to dominate and to advise that it's a one-size-fits-all system. But what I am there to do is to help people, especially newbies to this, coming in for the first time. But I can't, to create those categories. But I can't stop their knee-jerk reactions. I can't cleanse them of all the baggage that they're bringing in from the world, all these preconceptions. And I cannot stop their knee-jerk reaction against me personally, which, these are the things that stand in the way. To me, those are all forms of enslavement. And I can speak with authority on this, you see, because if I think of myself in the days of ignorance, my God, were they deep? Were they deep? Or if I think back, okay, what age? Even up to 24, 30, 33, I didn't know nothing. And when I look back to that time, when I saw, when I look back and I can see my own ignorance, the difference with me and the people that I see today is that when I came upon a teacher, no matter who they were, now granted later on I may have parted with that teacher, or I may have said, I see the inadequacies of that person. But see, at the time when I first came upon a teacher, be it in book form, or be it in some other art form, or some even live person, have you any idea of the hunger that I had? Have you any idea of the respect that I had and what I was willing to do to have that person impart their wisdom to me? There was admiration, there was reverence, there was completely different kind of energy than I see today, with arms folded and this contempt and this cantankerousness and this doubt. I didn't have that as a beginner. I had absolute hunger to learn and the feeling that I knew nothing. Like Socrates said, I know that I know nothing, and that as my knowledge increases, I know less and less. I was so possessed with that feeling that I was devouring books. I was seeking out anything and everything, so that I could find the right way. Because I knew that if I can't know the truth, at least there's people out there who have, found the truth. Let me start at A. I didn't want to jump guns. I didn't want to turn over 2 pages at once. Now I had reservations. I wasn't willing to humble myself to an extreme extent, and fall at the feet of some guru. I wouldn't go to that length. That's not what I'm talking about. But I had this very positive hunger that after setting out on the journey, I met people. I met the world of knowledge with an incredible hunger and incredible reverence. And that's part of being enslaved, because the way you walk the road, right, the way you walk the road to truth turns out to be as important as the road itself or the goal. The way you walk, the energy you brought with you through the darkness, the relationship that you had with your own darkness and your own ignorance, all of that is borne in mind. You can't just jump over and then, become the PhD, become the sort of enlightened one. It won't, that's what I say, bringing in the baggage of the way the world works. The world works that way, where you jump through these hoops, mate, and we'll give you a scroll. We'll give you the key to the door. In spiritual teachings, it's completely different. You may have to even go back over the old road many times. You may have to, like the snakes and ladders game, come back down to square one many, many times, by the way. This is not necessarily in the world. When they give you a prize, they give it to you. But in spiritual teachings, the whole thing is a labyrinth that can fold back on itself. There's no rules. The way you walk the road determines the rules and the vistas and the goals. It's a very different set of laws and rules. So this is why I say, even though we provide the solutions, that doesn't let the person off the hook automatically, that they can come in with all of their worldly baggage, with all their nonsensical self-image, with all of their projections and counter-projections on you, and then at the same time expect, to then immediately transform the world. No, it doesn't work like that.
All right, so excellent clip there from the Michael Tessarion, again, of Unslaved.com, and you can find him at michaeltessarion.com as well. Lots of good articles and work that he's mainly looks like he's been pulling off of YouTube, essentially to try to get everything under the umbrella of Unslaved. I couldn't tell you exactly why or whatever, but that work is harder to find. I've also had people comment that, oh, well, isn't that the crazy Atlantis guy who didn't provide a lot of resources? And there were lots of resources in Irish origins of civilization and the Atlantis work that Michael did, but also I think that's sort of limiting to think like, oh, he's in like the David Icke lizard people category, one of those people that doesn't provide references. Like, that's absolutely actually not the case. And I think that would then make you be missing out on a large portion of the great work that Michael's been doing, from those early days on. And, I have lucky enough to have the ARC drive from Mark Passio of whatonearthishappening.com and the One Great Work Network. I got Mark's ARC probably 2 or 3 years ago, so whatever's been added to it since then I don't have, but I'm not lacking in awesome information that's on the drive, including videos, podcasts, audio books, and lots of PDFs, tons of information, more than I'm ever going to be able to go through. But Michael's work is all on the ARC drive as well. And I even know Mark is like one of the folks that is like, Michael Tessarion is just a status now, and da-da-da, because apparently Michael didn't want to speak at the conference, or there was some issue with... I think Michael did end up speaking at one of the Freer Minds, but there was some comment made on Facebook about, one of Mark's order following videos. Anyway, now I'm just rambling. I think what I'll do here, I'm going to round the third base plate to home here to make a Masonic baseball reference. And the last song here, I mentioned earlier that John Trudell was featured in the music. He was sampled in there. And then I even brought up Derek earlier when I was talking about you are powerful, you are beautiful, you are free. So both of these characters have been mentioned in this episode already. But this next song is under Derek's artist label called 33. So he's a Mason, guys, and he's in the Illuminati, and that's why he's running for the mayor of Houston right now. No, Derek is an awesome individual. I know him in real life. I've met him in person many times. We've worked on projects together, mainly projects that he's been working on, and I've helped facilitate that, including the activation tour recently that came through when Derek recorded the holistic self-assessment online. I was part of that production. He did that for the Autonomy Group. And you can do the holistic self-assessment, I believe, for free. I don't know, but he puts that book out there. It's a great book to go through as well. Back to the Decentralize Your Life tour in 2016, when I first met Derek, and I helped him create that logo for that tour, which ended up being plastered on the hood of a car, blown up huge. It was weird to see something I made on this giant sticker on an automobile. But since then, I've really respected and appreciated the path that Derek has taken and the things that he's worked on and the work that he continues to do over at the consciousresistancenetwork.com. I think it's just the consciousresistance.com. And you can find more about the things that he's put out over the years there. If you've not heard of Derek's work, I would highly suggest checking it out, although I think most of the people that are sort of in our circle know who the individual is, may or may not have been familiar with some of his music, but I think this song goes along well with the episode theme and be a perfect tie on to the end here of this episode. So I want to appreciate everybody for tuning in today. And we had a technical difficulty. There was a crash midway through the stream, so I'll be getting the Odysee, Bitchute, Rumble, IPFS downloads, audio version out as soon as possible. And so bear with me as I get that out, but we will get a complete episode out. Luckily, we have local recording still good to go, so even though there was that problem today, we will get the content out to you. And again, we'll be continuing on with Freedom's Rising, and the information that we discussed today is not meant to be just all-encompassing of the information. We are going to be continuing down this road with this topic, and with that being said, I want to say thank you for riding along with me today and working through those difficulties. And other than that, we will see you next time. Here is 33, Derek Bros, with the song Reflection. And we'll see you next time.
It's time to reflect. The people who have created this system and they perpetuate this system, they are out of balance. So let's do this. They have made us out of balance. I woke up this morning feeling I had something to say. I got doubts on my mind. It's time to let them fly away. It's time to unlearn poison and heal broken hearts. Go back to the end. It's time for a fresh start. This is the place we can atone for our sins. This is the place where our hero's journey begins. A space between love and hate, where there's no escape from our fate. Rather than be irate, let's create, let's build the better world we know is possible. I've got no fear, cause we can overcome any obstacle. I stare all my demons in the face, I'll show you what's possible. I send love from my heart, I'm intuitive, not illogical. It's just that lately I've been searching for deeper meaning. I'm sick of drugs, booze, mindless sex, and criminal scheming. Feels like I should have more at this point in time. I'm talking knowledge, not money, I'm trying to feed my mind. See, we are power. They deal in violence and repression, we are power. They tell us, they want us to believe that we are powerless. I hope you hear these words. From my mind, from my heart to your ears. Let's make a difference. Let's do something. Open up all three of my eyes and fly to the heavens. During my meditation, I see my life in chapters of 7. I connect to my inner child to heal my wounds. I remember those I've lost to dope gone too soon. My life flashes before me, a collage of joy and pain. I recall the highs, the lows, I swear I'm going insane. I'm trying to wrap my mind around this journey. Spent too much time worrying about things that don't concern me. No more time wasted, not chasing my dreams. I wake up every day knowing this world ain't what it seems. We gotta find our own path, we gotta make our own meaning. Cause we can't be sure, we might be dreaming. All I know is, when I look in your eyes, I see myself. I'm just a reflection of your impression of my higher self. Could it be that our whole reason for being, our existence, is a lesson to teach us over and over until we get this? You are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Shake off your chains, you were blind, but now you see. Grandfather, help us remember where we come from. Grandmother, walk with us until this battle is won. I'm here right now, just here to remind you to give thanks where you come from. Think about where you're headed. 33, out. We are a natural part of the earth. We are an extension of that natural energy which is spirit and which is power. That is natural power. And just as it takes millions and billions of elements to make a blizzard to happen, or to make the earthquake, to make the earth to move, then it's going to take millions and billions of us. We are power. We have that power. You are powerful, you are beautiful, you are free.